Am I the a-hole for not giving in to my brother's tantrums? I, female 29, recently bought a house and a brand new car. I will admit I probably splurged on my house more than I should have. But growing up very poor, it has always been a dream of mine to live in a nice house, one that I could truly call my own. I worked really hard to be where I am today, so much so that I underwent countless breakups because I always chose my career over relationships. It was a sacrifice I was willing to make, and I don't regret it. My brother, male 25, is currently jobless. He used to work as a tourist guide, but with the inconsistency of that job, he can barely make ends meet. He has 5 kids now and counting, as his wife recently announced another pregnancy. He struggles financially, and I have helped him in the past, though he never seemed to appreciate it much. One day he messaged me on Facebook, saying that there was something important he wanted to talk about. I assumed he wanted to name me godmother to his upcoming baby, as that had happened before, so I said sure, and invited him to my house. I thought it would be a great opportunity to get his opinion on some modifications I was making for our parents' comfort. He arrived and I gave him a tour of the house. He admired it greatly, saying things like how excited he was to bring the kids over. I didn't think much of it, as I assumed he was talking about a visit, which I would have been more than happy to host. Imagine my surprise when he finally sat me down and revealed what he actually wanted to talk about. He wanted me to give him my house. At first, I thought he was joking. I even laughed and asked if he meant my newly bought house or the one I had purchased for our parents, which I was still living in, while my dream house underwent some final modifications. He clarified that he meant my newly purchased dream home. His reasoning? The house was big enough for his growing family, and since I was single and had no kids, I didn't need all that space. He even generously offered that if I really wanted to stay, I could move into the maid's quarters and modify it for my personal use. I was completely stunned. I couldn't even speak as he started thanking me over and over for the house, acting as if the deal was already done. When I finally found my voice, I asked him where on earth he got that ridiculous idea from. That's when he dropped the bombshell. Our mother told him I would give him my house. Of course, I immediately corrected him. And that's where everything went south. My brother insisted that since our mother had declared the house was his, I had no choice but to hand it over. He genuinely believed that I was powerless in this situation. I called my mother right then and there to tell her to back off, but to no one's surprise, she sided with my brother. She told me that as a family, we should support each other, and I didn't need such a big house all to myself. Things escalated quickly, and to make this already long story short, my entire family cut me off and my parents disowned me until I do the right thing and give my brother my house. My father, already in poor health, was brought to the hospital due to the stress of this fight, and now I feel absolutely awful. The guy I'm currently seeing told me to just give up the house to keep the peace, and he even offered to help me buy another one. But that idea felt so wrong. Edit 1. The house they tried to give away is my dream home, the one I envisioned raising my 5 adorable fur babies in. The family home is also in my name because I took out a loan back then to purchase it. So yeah, while it may seem obvious that I'm not the a-hole, I can't help but feel guilty since my father was hospitalized because of this whole ordeal. Edit 2. I've been trying to read all the comments, and I'm honestly overwhelmed by the support. I'm temporarily staying at a friend's house, and after reflecting on everything, I finally decided I will not give up my dream house. Instead, I'll sell the other house to help pay off a significant portion of the loan on my home. I also decided to remove my parents' access to my health plans and take them off my insurance. It's tough, but I realize now that I need to prioritize myself. Lastly, thank you for the awards, kind strangers. Reading your comments made me realize just how unreal this situation sounds. Update 1. 8 months later. I completely cut my family off back in December. I removed them from every financial support system they benefited from, including the health plans they so heavily relied on. My reasoning was simple. If my mum says I'm dead to her, then she gets nothing from me. Predictably, the reactions from our extended family were not in my favour. Most of the older generations sided with my mother, claiming that families should always help each other. My cousins, however, stood by me. I even got uninvited from the family reunion that I originally sponsored, which was just laughable at that point. When I tried to visit my grandmother, my aunts and uncles physically blocked the gate, refusing to let me in. I won't expand on that part because, even now, it still hurts. To make matters worse, my mother actually sued me for selling the first house back in January. Thankfully, the case didn't make it far, and I won. But the public perception of me within our community worsened. My mother and brother took this as an opportunity to twist the narrative in their favour. They made countless posts on social media about how I was an ungrateful daughter who owed them everything I had. They even went as far as blaming me for my father's death. Yes, he passed away. And no, I wasn't allowed to attend the funeral. At my lowest point, I almost gave in. I almost signed the papers to hand over my house to my brother. The guilt was unbearable. I believed them when they said my selfishness killed my father. It was my boyfriend who stopped me. He convinced me to take a break from work and see a professional. That decision changed everything. Talking to a therapist made me realize just how deeply messed up my family's treatment of me was. It's crazy to think it took strangers on the internet to open my eyes to the reality I had been blind to my entire life. On a brighter note, this ordeal showed me how much my fiancé's family truly cares for me. At first, I thought they were just being polite, but when everything fell apart, they stood by my side. Even when my fiancé had to leave for a 1-week overseas work trip, his family took care of me. His mother even told me something so kind and heartfelt that it was the nicest thing I've ever heard in my life. Final update. On July the 21st, my father's birthday, my mother finally reached out. She admitted that she was wrong to ban me from his funeral, but justified her anger by saying that when I cut them off financially, it left them unable to afford my father's hospital bills. We cried together, but in the end, she still said she couldn't fully forgive me. Part of her still blames me. My therapist told me that dwelling on what-ifs is counterproductive, but I still can't help but wonder, if I had handled things differently, would my father still be alive? Would my family still hate me? I don't know. What I do know is that my brother still refuses to talk to me, and honestly, that's just fine with me. What do you guys think about this whole situation? What would you do if you were in her shoes? Let me know in the comments section.